The mirror cracked down the middle when General Elena Vasquez threw her combat boot at it. Glass shards scattered across the metal floor of her quarters, each piece reflecting a different version of herself. Some showed the woman she used to be. Others showed the monster she had become. Elena stared at her reflection in the largest remaining piece. Her face was scarred from countless battles against alien forces. Her eyes held the weight of decisions that had saved humanity but cost her soul. The woman looking back at her was a stranger. 3 years ago she had been humanity's greatest hero, commander of the Earth Defense Fleet, the Iron Lady who broke the Zephyrian siege of Mars, the tactical genius who turned the tide at Europa Station. Children drew pictures of her in their school books. Soldiers followed her into impossible battles because they believed she could win any war. Now she was alone in a military hospital on Earth, waiting for her court-martial. The same government that had decorated her with medals now called her a war criminal. The same people who had cheered her victories now demanded her execution. The door to her room hissed open. Dr. Sarah Chen walked in, carrying a tablet and wearing the same concerned expression she had worn for the past 6 months. Elena had grown tired of that look. It reminded her too much of pity. "You broke another mirror," Dr. Chen said, stepping carefully around the glass. "That's the 4th one this month." "I don't like what I see," Elena replied, turning away from the broken reflection. "Maybe you should stop putting mirrors in here." Dr. Chen activated her tablet and made a note. "We've talked about this, Elena. Running from your reflection won't change what happened at Titan Base." Elena's hands clenched into fists. Titan Base. The name still made her stomach twist with guilt and rage. The place where everything went wrong. Where she had made the choice that saved 3 million people and damned her forever. "I didn't run," Elena said. "I never ran from anything. That was the problem." "Tell me about the dreams again," Dr. Chen said, sitting in the chair across from Elena's bed. "Are they getting worse?" Elena laughed bitterly. "Dreams? You mean nightmares?" "And yes, they're getting worse. Last night I dreamed I was back on Titan, watching the colony ships burn. But in the dream I was the one who gave the order to fire. I was the one who pulled the trigger." "But that's not what happened," Dr. Chen said gently. "You saved those people. Your actions prevented a massacre. Did I?" Elena stood and walked to the small window. Outside she could see the sprawling city of New Geneva. Millions of people living their lives safe because of choices she had made. Safe because of the terrible things she had done. 300,000 Zephyrians died when I destroyed their command ship. 300,000 beings who were just following orders like I was. Dr. Chen set down her tablet. "Elena, we've been through this. The Zephyrians were preparing to execute every human civilian on Titan. You had minutes to act. You saved 3 million lives. By committing genocide." Elena's voice was flat, emotionless. "That's what they're calling it at the trial. Genocide. And they're right." The silence stretched between them. Dr. Chen had heard this conversation before, in different words, with the same conclusion. Elena Vasquez, the woman who had saved humanity, could not forgive herself for the cost of that salvation. "Your trial starts next week," Dr. Chen said finally. "Have you thought about what you'll say?" Elena turned back to face her. "What is there to say? I did what they're accusing me of. I destroyed an entire Zephyrian fleet. I killed hundreds of thousands of sentient beings in a single moment. The only question is whether the court will decide it was necessary. You could argue self-defense. The defense of others. You were protecting innocent civilians." "I could," Elena agreed. "But that wouldn't change the fact that I enjoyed it." Dr. Chen's eyes widened. In 6 months of therapy sessions, Elena had never admitted that before. "What do you mean?" Elena walked back to the broken mirror and picked up a piece of glass. Her reflection was fractured, distorted. "When I gave the order to fire, when I watched their ships explode, when I saw 300,000 lives end in an instant, there was a part of me that felt satisfaction, relief, even joy." She cut her finger on the glass, watching a drop of blood fall to the floor. "That's the part of me I can't face. That's the reflection I keep trying to break. The woman who found pleasure in mass murder." Dr. Chen leaned forward. "Elena, you were in an impossible situation. The stress, the pressure, the weight of command—" "No," Elena interrupted. "Don't make excuses for me. I know what I am. I know what I've become. The question is whether humanity is safer with me locked away or dead." The room fell silent again. Outside, the sun was setting over New Geneva, painting the sky in shades of red that reminded Elena of burning ships and dying enemies. She had saved this world, but she had lost herself in the process. I used to believe in honor, Elena said quietly. I used to think there were lines that couldn't be crossed, even in war. I used to look in the mirror and see a soldier. Now I see a killer. Dr. Chen stood and moved toward the door. Elena, you're not a killer. You're a woman who made an impossible choice under impossible circumstances. The fact that you feel guilt about it proves you're still human. Elena didn't respond. She was staring at the broken glass again, at the fractured reflections of a woman she no longer recognized. Tomorrow would bring another day of questions, another night of nightmares, another step closer to a trial that would determine her fate. But tonight, she would stand alone with her broken reflection, trying to understand how the woman who had saved humanity had lost herself in the process. The war was over, but the battle for her soul had just begun. The courtroom was packed with reporters, protesters, and survivors. Elena sat at the defendant's table wearing her dress uniform for what might be the last time. The medals on her chest felt heavier than usual. Each one represented a victory that had led her to this moment. Judge Harrison entered and everyone stood. Elena had served under Harrison's command during the Mars campaign. He had been a good officer then, fair and decisive. Now his face showed no emotion as he looked down at her from the bench. General Vasquez, Judge Harrison said formally, you stand accused of war crimes, genocide, and violation of the Galactic Warfare Convention. How do you plead? Elena's lawyer, a young woman named Rebecca Martinez, had begged her to plead not guilty, to fight the charges, to argue necessity, self-defense, the fog of war. Elena had refused. Guilty, Your Honor, Elena said clearly. Her voice carried across the silent courtroom. A murmur ran through the crowd. Rebecca closed her eyes in defeat. Judge Harrison's expression didn't change, but Elena saw the slight tightening around his eyes. He had not expected this. General Vasquez, the judge said carefully, I want to make sure you understand what you're saying. You are pleading guilty to charges that carry a maximum sentence of death. Are you certain this is your plea? I am certain, Elena replied. I did what they're accusing me of. I destroyed the Zephyrian fleet at Titan Base. I killed 300,000 beings in a single attack. I am guilty of those actions. The prosecutor, General Thompson, looked stunned. He had prepared for a long trial, for arguments about necessity in the fog of war. A guilty plea simplified everything and ruined his plans for a public spectacle. Very well, Judge Harrison said. The court accepts your plea. We will now proceed to the sentencing phase. General Thompson, you may present your case for punishment. Thompson stood slowly. He was a career military lawyer who had never seen real combat. Elena had always despised his type, men who played war games in courtrooms while real soldiers died in space. Your Honor, Thompson began, the defendant has admitted to the most heinous war crime in human history. She deliberately targeted civilian vessels. She destroyed medical ships clearly marked with protection symbols. She committed genocide against a species that was attempting to surrender. Elena's jaw tightened. The last part was a lie, and Thompson knew it. The Zephyrians had not been surrendering. They had been preparing to execute every human civilian on Titan Base. But she had pleaded guilty, so there was no point in arguing the details now. The prosecution demands the death penalty, Thompson continued. General Vasquez has shown no remorse for her actions. She has refused to cooperate with investigators. She has demonstrated that she is a danger to galactic peace and must be permanently removed from society. When Thompson finished, Judge Harrison looked to Elena's lawyer. Rebecca Martinez stood reluctantly. She had prepared for a defense case, not a sentencing hearing. Your Honor, Rebecca said, while my client has accepted responsibility for her actions, the court must consider the circumstances. General Vasquez was faced with an impossible choice. The Zephyrian fleet was preparing to execute 3 million human civilians. She had minutes to act and no other options available. Rebecca pulled up a holographic display showing the tactical situation at Titan Base. Elena had seen this analysis 100 times in her nightmares. The Zephyrian ships positioned around the colony transports. The countdown to mass execution. The narrow window of opportunity. My client saved 3 million lives, Rebecca continued. She prevented the complete annihilation of the Titan colony. Yes, her methods were extreme, but the alternative was the total genocide of every human in Tyr. And they know why you did it. To them, you're not a war criminal. You're the person who gave them a chance to live. Rodriguez leaned forward. General, I was there. I saw the tactical situation. You had seconds to make a decision that would affect millions of lives. You chose to save the people you were sworn to protect. I would have made the same choice, and would you? Elena asked. Even knowing the cost? Even knowing that you would spend the rest of your life carrying the weight of 300,000 deaths? Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. I hope so, he said finally. I hope I would have had the courage to make the hard choice, even if it meant damning myself to save others. After Rodriguez left, Elena returned to her cell with a new weight on her shoulders. The knowledge that she was considered a hero by some people made her guilt more complex, not less. Heroes were supposed to be pure, uncomplicated figures of virtue, but she was neither pure nor uncomplicated. She was a woman who had saved millions and killed hundreds of thousands, who had acted from both noble and base motives, who had become a monster in order to remain human. That night, as Elena lay in her bunk staring at the ceiling, she realized something important. She had been fighting the wrong battle. She had been trying to reconcile the contradictions in her actions, to find a simple truth that would either condemn or absolve her. But perhaps the truth was that no such simple answer existed. Perhaps being human meant living with uncertainty, with the knowledge that good and evil could exist in the same person, in the same action, in the same moment. Perhaps the real challenge was not to resolve the contradictions, but to bear them with dignity. For the first time since Titan Base, Elena allowed herself to consider the possibility that she might someday find peace, not through forgiveness or condemnation, but through acceptance of the complex truth of what she had become. The battle for her soul was changing, becoming less about victory and defeat and more about understanding the nature of the war itself. 2 years into her sentence, Elena's routine at Luna Base was interrupted by an emergency alarm. Red lights flashed through the corridors as guards rushed to secure the facility. Through the announcement system, Warden Collins' voice crackled with urgency. All prisoners return to cells immediately. This facility is under lockdown. Unknown ships have entered lunar space. All personnel report to emergency stations. Elena was in the fabrication center when the alarm sounded. Around her, prisoners dropped their tools and began moving toward their cell blocks under guard escort. But Elena stayed where she was, her tactical mind immediately analyzing the situation. Unknown ships in lunar space could mean only one thing. The war was not over. Despite the peace treaty signed after Titan Base, someone was attacking again, and Luna Base, with its strategic position and valuable prisoners, would be a prime target. Guard Sergeant Walsh approached her. Vasquez, move to your cell block now. Sergeant, Elena said calmly. How many ships and what configuration? Walsh hesitated. Elena's reputation as a tactical genius was well known, even among the guards. Intelligence reports 12 vessels, frigate class, unknown origin. They're not responding to communication attempts. Elena's blood ran cold. 12 frigates was exactly the size of a Zephyrian raiding squadron. It seemed impossible. The Zephyrian fleet had been decimated at Titan Base, but perhaps some survivors had regrouped, seeking revenge against the woman who had destroyed their people. Sergeant, you need to get me to the command center, Elena said urgently. If those are Zephyrian ships, Luna Base's defenses won't be enough. You need someone who understands their tactics. Walsh laughed bitterly. Right, like the warden is going to let a war criminal into the command center during an attack. Elena grabbed Walsh's arm. Sergeant, I fought the Zephyrians for 5 years. I know how they think, how they attack, how they can be beaten. Your defensive systems were designed for human threats, not alien ones. Without my help, everyone on this base is going to die. Before Walsh could respond, the base shuddered under weapons fire. The lights flickered and the artificial gravity fluctuated momentarily. Through the fabrication center's reinforced windows, Elena could see flashes of energy fire in the space above them. They're targeting the communication arrays first, Elena said, watching the attack pattern. Classic Zephyrian doctrine. Cut off calls for help, then systematically destroy defensive positions. They'll save the main base for last, probably planning to take prisoners. Walsh's comm unit crackled. All units, enemy forces are landing on the surface. Multiple breach points reported. Defensive teams to emergency positions. Elena could hear the fear in the guard's voice over the comm. Luna Base was a prison, not a military installation. Its guards were trained to handle human prisoners, not alien invasion forces. They would be slaughtered within hours. Sergeant, Elena said quietly, I know you have no reason to trust me. I know I'm a convicted war criminal, but I'm also the only person on this base who has successfully fought the Zephyrians and won. Right now that matters more than my criminal record." Walsh looked at her for a long moment, weighing his options. Another explosion shook the base, closer this time. Emergency lighting activated as main power fluctuated. The decision was made for him. "Come with me," he said, drawing his sidearm. "But if you try anything, I'll shoot you myself." They ran through corridors filled with panicking guards and confused prisoners. Some inmates had barricaded themselves in their cells. Others wandered the common areas, unsure whether the attack represented danger or opportunity. Elena ignored them all, focused on reaching the command center. Warden Collins was standing over a tactical display when Elena and Walsh entered the command center. The warden's face was pale with stress and fear. Around him, guards frantically worked communication equipment and defensive systems. "Sir," Walsh announced, "Prisoner Vasquez says she can help with the defense." Collins looked up, his expression shifting from surprise to anger. "Get that war criminal out of my command center immediately. I don't need help from someone who committed genocide." Elena stepped forward. "Warden, look at your tactical display. The attack pattern, the ship formations, the targeting priorities. This is a Zephyrian assault and your people don't know how to fight them." Collins glanced at the display, then back at Elena. "The Zephyrians were defeated at Titan Base. Their fleet was destroyed." "Most of it was," Elena agreed. "But some ships escaped. Some survivors regrouped. And now they're here, probably looking for me specifically. They want revenge for what I did to their people." As if to emphasize her point, another explosion rocked the base. A guard at a monitoring station called out, "Sir, the Eastern Defense Grid is offline. Enemy forces have breached sections 7 through 12. Elena studied the tactical display with professional interest. The Zephyrian attack was proceeding exactly as she had expected. They were systematically eliminating Luna Base's defenses while avoiding areas where prisoners were housed. They wanted to capture the facility intact. "They're not trying to destroy the base," Elena said. "They want it captured. That means they're planning to take prisoners. Probably high-value targets. They know I'm here." Warden Collins stared at her. "You think they came here for you?" "I know they did," Elena replied. "I'm the one who destroyed their fleet. I'm the one who killed their people. From their perspective, I'm the greatest war criminal in galactic history. Of course they want revenge." A young guard manning the sensor station turned around. "Sir, I'm detecting Zephyrian biosignatures in the captured sections. The invaders are definitely alien, not human pirates or terrorists." Collins closed his eyes for a moment, accepting the reality of the situation. When he opened them, he looked directly at Elena. "What do you need?" Elena moved to the tactical display. "First, stop trying to fight them like they're humans. Zephyrian warriors have better reflexes and stronger armor than your guards. Direct confrontation will only get your people killed." She manipulated the display controls, highlighting key sections of the base. "Second, they're expecting resistance from the guards, but they're not expecting tactical coordination. If we can predict their movement patterns, we can set traps and ambushes. And third," Elena continued, "we need to give them what they want. They came here for me. If I surrender to them, they might spare the rest of the base." Warden Collins shook his head. "I'm not handing over a prisoner to alien invaders, even one convicted of war crimes." Elena looked at him with something resembling respect. "Then we fight. But we fight smart, and we use every advantage we have, including the fact that they underestimate human tactical flexibility." She turned to the assembled guards. "Who here has combat experience?" Several hands went up. Elena nodded. "Good. You're going to be squad leaders. The rest of you will follow their orders without question. We're going to show these aliens that humans don't give up, even when the odds are impossible." For the first time in 2 years, Elena felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with command. She was no longer a prisoner haunted by her past. She was a general preparing for battle, and despite everything that had happened at Titan Base, despite her guilt and shame and self-doubt, she was still the Iron Lady who had never lost a fight. The war had found her again, even in prison. But this time she would fight not for revenge or glory, but for the simple human right to survive. The battle for Luna Base was about to begin. The battle for Luna Base raged for 6 hours. Elena coordinated the defense from the command center. Watching tactical displays and directing guard units through a communication network, that the Zephyrians had not yet managed to completely destroy. The alien invaders were methodical and professional, advancing through the base section by section. But Elena's knowledge of their tactics allowed her to predict their movements and set up effective ambushes. Human flexibility and ingenuity were proving more effective than Zephyrian discipline and superior technology. Squad 3, fall back to checkpoint, Charlie. Elena ordered into her headset. They're trying to flank you through the maintenance tunnels. Squad 5, move to intercept from the north corridor. The guards were performing better than she had expected. Fear had been replaced by determination, as they saw that the legendary General Vasquez could indeed make them a match for alien warriors. Even Warden Collins had taken up a rifle and was leading a defensive position near the prisoner medical facility. But Elena knew they could not win a war of attrition. The Zephyrians had superior numbers, better equipment, and reinforcements on the way. Luna Base's defenses were designed to keep prisoners in, not invaders out. Eventually, the aliens would break through. General, Sergeant Walsh called from his monitoring station. The Zephyrians have taken the main power plant. We're running on emergency backup systems. Elena studied the tactical display. The aliens had secured most of the outer sections and were closing in on the core areas where the prisoners and guards were making their last stand. It was time for desperate measures. Warden Collins, Elena said, I need you to release the Category A prisoners. Collins looked at her in shock. Are you insane? Those are the most dangerous criminals in human space. Murderers, terrorists, pirates, and soldiers, Elena interrupted. Some of them are former military who turned to crime after the war. Right now we need every fighter we can get. Promise them reduced sentences in exchange for defending the base. Collins hesitated. Category A prisoners were kept in maximum isolation for good reason. Releasing them would be against every protocol in the book. But with alien invaders closing in on their position, protocol seemed less important than survival. Do it, he ordered a subordinate. Release Category A prisoners to the armory. Full combat authorization. Within minutes, some of the most dangerous criminals in human space were armed and ready for battle. Among them was Marcus Kane, a former Marine who had become a notorious pirate after his unit was disbanded. His scarred face lit up with savage glee as he hefted a pulse rifle. General Vasquez, Kane said with mock formality. It's an honor to serve under the Iron Lady again, just like old times, except we're fighting for our lives instead of our careers. Elena recognized Kane from the Mars campaign. He had been a good soldier before the war broke him. Kane, take a squad and hit the Zephyrians from the rear. They're not expecting resistance from that direction. Kane grinned. With pleasure, General. I've been wanting to kill something alien for 2 years. The newly armed prisoners threw themselves into battle with a ferocity that surprised even Elena. They had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Some fought for reduced sentences. Others fought for the simple pleasure of violence. A few seemed to genuinely believe they were defending humanity. The tide of battle began to turn. The Zephyrians, expecting to face guards and civilians, found themselves fighting hardened criminals who used every dirty trick imaginable. Prisoners who had spent years fighting each other turned their skills against the alien invaders with devastating effect. But the victory was short-lived. Elena's tactical display showed new contacts approaching Luna Base. A second wave of Zephyrian ships was arriving, carrying heavy assault troops and siege equipment. The aliens had not expected this level of resistance and were bringing overwhelming force to crush it. All units, fall back to the central core, Elena ordered. Prepare for siege conditions. This is going to be a fight to the last man. As the defenders retreated to their final positions, Elena found herself face to face with Morrison, her cellmate who had become an unlikely friend. He was carrying a medical kit, helping wounded guards and prisoners without regard for their past crimes. Morrison, Elena said, you should stay in the medical center. You're not a fighter. Morrison shook his head. I may not be a soldier, but I'm still human. If we're going to die here, we die together. Besides, someone needs to tend the wounded. Elena felt a surge of pride in her species. Here were criminals, guards, and prisoners fighting side by side against alien invaders. Humanity's capacity for unity in the face of extinction was something the Zephyrians had never understood. It was why they had lost the war, despite their technological advantages. The second assault began with a barrage of heavy weapons that shook the entire base. The Zephyrians were no longer trying to capture Luna Base intact. They wanted to destroy it completely along with everyone inside. They're bringing up siege cannons, Walsh reported. The core sections won't survive a direct bombardment. Elena looked around the command center at the faces of the people depending on her. Guards who had been her jailers. Prisoners who had been her fellow inmates. All of them united now in the face of annihilation. There's one option left, Elena said quietly. The base's self-destruct system. If we can lure the Zephyrian ground forces into the core sections and then detonate the fusion reactors, we can take most of them with us. Warden Collins stared at her. That would kill everyone on the base. Yes, Elena agreed. But it would also destroy the Zephyrian assault force and prevent them from using Luna Base as a staging area for attacks on Earth. Sometimes, the only way to win is to make sure the enemy loses too. The same calculation she had made at Titan Base. The same willingness to sacrifice lives for a strategic advantage. But this time, the lives she was sacrificing included her own. I'm not ordering anyone to stay, Elena continued. If we can get people to the escape pods, some might make it to safety. But someone needs to remain behind to ensure the self-destruct sequence completes. Kane spoke up from his position at the door. General, with respect, we're all dead anyway. Those alien bastards aren't going to take prisoners. At least this way, we go out fighting and take them with us. A murmur of agreement ran through the assembled defenders. These were people who had faced death before in battle or in prison. The prospect of dying on their own terms held a certain appeal. Very well, Elena said. Warden, begin the self-destruct sequence.
Set it for 30 minutes.
That should give us time to make the Zephyrians commit their forces to the core sections. As Collins initiated the base's final protocol, Elena felt a strange sense of peace. She had spent 2 years wrestling with guilt over her actions at Titan Base. Now she was about to make a similar sacrifice, but this time there was no ambiguity about her motives. She was dying to protect humanity, not to seek revenge against aliens. The countdown began, 30 minutes until Luna Base became a brief star in the lunar sky, taking with it the last remnants of the Zephyrian fleet and the woman who had destroyed their empire. Elena Vasquez would finally pay the price for her victory at Titan Base. But she would do so as a hero, not a war criminal. The final battle for Luna Base was about to begin, and this time Elena knew exactly who she was fighting for and why. The reflection in her broken mirror was finally coming into focus. 20 minutes remained on the countdown when everything changed. Elena was coordinating the final defensive positions when her tactical display lit up with new contacts approaching Luna Base. But these weren't Zephyrian ships. The sensor signatures were human. Multiple contacts incoming, Walsh reported. Earth Defense Fleet Configuration, flagship. Sir, it's the EDF Redemption. Admiral Chen is requesting immediate communication. Elena's heart stopped. Admiral Chen was her former commander, the man who had given her the authority to make the decision at Titan Base. If he was here, it meant Earth had finally learned about the Zephyrian survivors and mounted a response. Put him through, Warden Collins ordered. Admiral Chen's weathered face appeared on the main display. His expression was grim but determined. Warden Collins, this is Admiral Chen commanding the Lunar Relief Force. We received your distress signal. What's your status? Admiral, we're under siege by Zephyrian forces, Collins replied. The base is heavily damaged and we've taken significant casualties. Self-destruct sequence is active with 19 minutes remaining. Chen's eyes widened. Self-destruct? Warden, cancel that sequence immediately. Help is on the way. Elena stepped into view of the camera. Admiral, the Zephyrian ground forces are concentrated in the core sections. If we abort the self-destruct now, they'll escape when your fleet arrives. We need to complete the sequence. Admiral Chen stared at her for a long moment. General Elena Vasquez, I wondered if I would ever speak to you again. Admiral, Elena said formally, I'm no longer a general. I'm a convicted war criminal, but I'm still a soldier and I know what needs to be done here. 18 minutes, Walsh announced. The countdown continued relentlessly. Admiral Chen leaned forward. Elena, I didn't come here just to rescue Luna Base. I came here to tell you something important. The Zephyrian government has officially requested your release. Elena felt the world shift around her. What? 6 months ago, the Zephyrian High Council made a formal petition to the Galactic Court, Chen explained. They want you released and pardoned for your actions at Titan Base. They're calling you a hero who prevented a greater catastrophe. Elena sank into a chair, stunned. That's impossible. I committed genocide against their people. I destroyed their entire fleet. You destroyed a rogue fleet that had defied direct orders from the Zephyrian government, Chen corrected. We've learned that the commander at Titan Base was acting without authorization. The High Council had ordered him to accept human surrender and negotiate a prisoner exchange.
Instead, he planned to execute the civilians out of personal hatred. The words hit Elena like physical blows.
You're saying the massacre was unauthorized? The Zephyrian High Council considers you a hero who saved both human and Zephyrian honor by stopping a war crime, Chen continued. The fleet you destroyed was in open rebellion against their lawful government. You didn't commit genocide, Elena, you prevented it. Elena's mind reeled. 2 years of guilt, 2 years of believing herself a monster, 2 years of broken mirrors and sleepless nights. And now she was being told that her greatest shame might actually have been her finest hour. 17 minutes. Walsh announced. Admiral, Elena said slowly, if that's true, then who are these Zephyrians attacking Luna Base? Chen's expression darkened. Survivors loyal to the rogue commander. They've been hiding in the outer systems, planning revenge against you and Earth. This attack on Luna Base is their final attempt to complete the mission their commander started at Titan Base. Elena stood up, her tactical mind processing this new information. How many ships in the rogue fleet? Intelligence suggests no more than 30 vessels total, scattered across multiple systems, Chen replied. The group attacking Luna Base is their primary force. If we can destroy them here, the threat ends permanently. Elena looked at the tactical display showing the Earth defense fleet engaging the Zephyrian ships in orbit. The battle was fierce but manageable. Chen had brought enough firepower to handle the alien fleet, but the ground forces were still a problem. Admiral, the Zephyrian ground troops are holding defensive positions throughout the base, Elena reported. They're using the infrastructure against us. A direct assault would be costly in both time and lives. What do you recommend? Chen asked. Elena studied the display for a moment. The self-destruct sequence will eliminate the ground forces, but it will also destroy valuable intelligence about the remaining rogue cells. If we can capture some of these Zephyrians alive, we might be able to track down the rest. 16 minutes, Walsh announced. Warden Collins stepped forward. General, Elena, what are you thinking? Elena was quiet for a long moment, weighing options and probabilities the way she had at Titan Base. But this time felt different. This time she was not driven by rage or fear or the desperate need to save lives at any cost. This time she could think clearly. We abort the self-destruct, she said finally. Admiral Chen's fleet can handle the ships in orbit. We'll use the remaining time to coordinate a surgical strike against the ground forces, focusing on capture rather than elimination. Kane spoke up from his position. General, these aliens came here to kill us all. Why are we worried about taking them alive? Elena looked at the scarred pirate who had become an unlikely ally. Because we're not them, Kane. Because the difference between humans and monsters is that we choose to be better even when it's harder. She turned to Collins. Warden, abort the self-destruct sequence. Collins hesitated. Are you sure? Once we abort, there's no going back. I'm sure, Elena said firmly. We're going to win this battle the right way. No unnecessary casualties, no excessive force, no actions we'll regret later. We're going to fight like humans, not like the monsters we think we have to become. Collins entered the abort code. The countdown stopped with 14 minutes and 37 seconds remaining. Throughout the base, defenders who had been preparing to die suddenly found themselves preparing to live. All units, Elena announced over the communication system. This is General Vasquez. The self-destruct has been aborted. Earth Defense Fleet is engaging enemy ships in orbit. Our mission now is to neutralize the ground forces with minimal casualties on both sides. Remember, we're soldiers, not executioners. Admiral Chen's voice came through the speakers. Elena, I'm downloading current tactical data to your systems. My Marines are ready to assist with the ground assault. Elena smiled for the first time in months. Understood, Admiral. It's good to be working with professionals again. As she began coordinating the final assault on the Zephyrian positions, Elena realized something important had changed inside her. The guilt and self-doubt that had plagued her for 2 years were still there, but they no longer controlled her. She had found a way to be both the woman who had destroyed a fleet and the woman who chose mercy when mercy was possible. The reflection in her broken mirror was finally becoming clear. She was not a hero or a monster. She was simply human, capable of both terrible violence and profound compassion, making difficult choices in impossible circumstances. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. 6 months later, Elena stood in the observation deck of Earth Station Alpha, watching transport ships carry Zephyrian diplomats to the formal peace ceremony. The final rogue cells had been eliminated, and both species were ready to begin the difficult work of building a lasting peace. Her reflection in the observation window was clearer now. The scars were still there, the weight of command still visible in her posture, but the haunted look had faded. She no longer saw a monster staring back at her. She saw a woman who had made difficult choices and learned to live with the consequences. "General Vasquez," a voice said behind her. Elena turned to see Ambassador Takara, the Zephyrian representative who had personally requested her release from Luna Base prison. The alien diplomat's scaled features showed the equivalent of a respectful smile. "Ambassador," Elena replied with a formal nod. "I wanted to thank you again for your testimony at my review hearing." Takara's translator device rendered her words in perfect English. "It was the truth, General. Your actions at Titan Base saved both our species from a catastrophe that would have poisoned relations for generations. The rogue commander's hatred was not shared by our government." Elena had learned the full story during the investigation that followed the Luna Base battle. Commander Vexhai, the Zephyrian leader at Titan Base, had lost his entire family in a human bombing raid early in the war. His plan to execute 3 million civilians had been an act of personal revenge, not military strategy. The Zephyrian High Council had ordered him to negotiate, but he had ignored their commands. "I still killed 300,000 of your people," Elena said quietly. "Whatever the commander's intentions, those lives were real." "Yes," Takara agreed. "And we mourn them, but you also prevented the murder of 3 million humans and the complete breakdown of peace negotiations. In our culture, we have a concept that translates roughly as tragic necessity. It describes actions that cause great harm, but prevent even greater catastrophe." Elena considered this. Tragic necessity. I like that better than necessary evil. It acknowledges the cost without dismissing the tragedy. "You understand the difference," Takara observed. "That is why my government requested your release. A person who commits evil without remorse is dangerous. A person who commits tragic necessity and carries the weight of it honorably is someone who can be trusted with power." The ambassador paused, studying Elena's face. "You have been offered command of the new Interspecies Defense Force. Will you accept?" Elena had been considering the offer for weeks. The IDF would be responsible for preventing future conflicts between human and Zephyrian populations. It was a chance to use her experience in service of peace rather than war. But it also meant taking responsibility for decisions that might require her to make similar choices in the future. "I'm not sure I trust myself with that much authority," Elena admitted. "Power corrupts, and I've seen what I'm capable of when I believe the ends justify the means." Takara's expression shifted to something resembling approval. "That is exactly why you should accept. A person who fears their own power is far less likely to abuse it than someone who craves authority." Before Elena could respond, Dr. Sarah Chen approached them. The psychiatrist had continued working with Elena even after her release from prison, helping her process the complex emotions surrounding her vindication. "Elena," Dr. Chen said warmly, "how are you feeling about today's ceremony?" Elena smiled slightly. "Like I'm watching history being made, and like I'm still trying to figure out my place in it." "You've come a long way from the woman who threw boots at mirrors," Dr. Chen observed. "What changed?" Elena thought about it. "I stopped trying to be either a hero or a villain. I accepted that I'm just human, with all the contradictions that implies. I can be both the person who saved millions and the person who killed hundreds of thousands. Both things are true, and I don't have to choose between them anymore." "And the nightmares?" Dr. Chen asked. "Still there," Elena admitted. "But they're different now. Instead of faces accusing me, I see the complexity of the situation. I see the impossible choice I faced and the decision I made. I still feel the weight of those deaths, but I also understand why they were necessary," Takara interjected. "In Zephyrian philosophy, we believe that wisdom comes not from avoiding difficult choices, but from making them with full awareness of the cost. You have achieved wisdom through suffering, General. That is why both our species trust you to help prevent future tragedies." Elena looked out at the ships carrying diplomats from both species to the peace ceremony. Representatives of two civilizations that had nearly destroyed each other were now working together to build something better. It was proof that even the worst conflicts could lead to understanding. "Dr. Chen," Elena said, "do you remember when you asked me if I thought we deserved forgiveness?" "I remember," the psychiatrist replied. "You said you didn't know if the math made it right." "I've decided the math doesn't matter," Elena said. "Forgiveness isn't about calculating whether our good deeds outweigh our bad ones. It's about accepting responsibility for our actions while still believing we're capable of doing better." Elena turned to Takara. "Ambassador, I'll accept the command position, but I want it understood that I'll never stop questioning my own decisions. The moment I become comfortable with the power to end lives is the moment I should be removed from command." Takara's scales shifted, and what Elena had learned was the Zephyrian equivalent of a respectful bow. "That is the attitude of a true leader, General. Someone who wields power reluctantly is far more trustworthy than someone who seeks it eagerly." As the three of them watched the peace ceremony begin, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had started as a confident general, become a guilt-ridden prisoner, and emerged as something more complex. She was a woman who understood the weight of command and the price of difficult decisions. "There's one more thing," Elena said to Dr. Chen. "I want to install a mirror in my new office. A good one, without cracks or distortions." Dr. Chen smiled. "What will you see when you look into it?" Elena considered the question. "I'll see a woman who made an impossible choice and learned to live with the consequences. I'll see someone who destroyed in order to save, who killed in order to protect life. I'll see all the contradictions that make us human." "And will that be enough?" Takara asked. Elena nodded slowly. "It will have to be, because that's what we are. Humans aren't perfect beings who always make the right choice. We're flawed creatures who sometimes manage to do the right thing despite our limitations. We carry our mistakes with us, learn from them, and try to do better next time." As the ceremony concluded with representatives of both species signing the formal peace accords, Elena felt something she hadn't experienced in years: hope for the future. Not because the problems were solved, but because she finally understood her place in the ongoing struggle between humanity's capacity for both creation and destruction. She had once ruled the battlefield through strength and decisive action. Now she would help build peace through wisdom earned in the hardest possible way. The woman who had fought her own reflection had finally made peace with what she saw in the mirror. The war was over. The real work of building a better future could finally begin. And General Elena Vasquez, scarred but not broken, was ready to lead that effort with all the hard-won wisdom of someone who understood the true cost of both war and peace. In the end, she had learned that being human meant accepting responsibility for difficult choices while never losing sight of the goal of becoming something better. It was not a perfect solution, but it was a human one, and sometimes that was enough.